This video is a video on how to graph data using Excel. I'm going to graph the data using a scatter plot. And so you can see here I have my data in two columns. The first column is time in minutes of when I took my samples. And the second column is the actual data that I got when I did take my samples. Now you should remember that the x-axis in a graph should always be the independent variable, and the y-axis on the graph should be the dependent variable. So my independent variable is indeed the time, and my dependent variable is the transmittance in this case. So I could actually write transmittance here if I wanted to. Okay, so in order to graph this data, all you do is you highlight the two columns. Oh, by the way, the x-axis is the first column. That's really important. So you always want to put the x-axis on the first column and then your data in the following columns. So I just highlight the two columns. Then I go to Insert and Charts. Charts are right here. And then I want to pick the scatter plot or scatter chart. So I'll click on that. And then I like to have the dots. You could connect the dots if you want, but let's start with just the dots. Okay, so that's all you do for the scatter plot. And since we do want to do a model of some sort of this data, I'm going to show you how to also include a trend line. This is a calculated line that we can add. So hover over your data and then right click and then go down to where it says add trend line, and then over here, get rid of that. Over here it gives you the options. You can try an exponential, which almost looks the same as the linear, the logarithmic, polynomial, etc. But let's stick with the linear one. If I scroll down on this toolbox here, I always want to display my equation and my r-squared value. Why should I do that? The equation tells you exactly if x is whatever it is, then y is going to be what you can calculate the exact number. So you don't have to, try to read it off the chart. I like the r-squared because that tells me what a good fit it is. So, for example, I'm going to do this one more time just to give you an example with r-squared. If I decided to add the logarithmic and I include the equation in the r-squared. So this r-squared value for the logarithmic is only 0.6. And the one for the linear is 0.9. The closer r-squared is to 1, the better the mathematical fit to your data is. So, therefore, I don't want this one. I delete that. And I'm going to keep the one that has 0.9, the linear. Okay, now that we have our basic graph, I'd like to add in axis titles so we know what we are actually seeing. You should always have axis titles because otherwise, how can anybody know what they're looking at? What's the data trying to say? That's very, very important. Sometimes when you click on the chart, a little icons will pop up here on the right side and with a plus on it, which is great because then you could just click on the plus, but I don't have that right now for some reason. So I can just go to Add Chart Element, which has a plus on it, so you know it's the same. And go to Axis Titles and Primary Horizontal. And then so my horizontal axis, oopsies, why didn't it show up? Axis title, primary horizontal. And my axis title on the horizontal axis is, the x-axis is the independent variable, as we know, which in our case is time in seconds. No, I did it in minutes. Yes, I did it in minutes. Okay, and now I want to do the same thing here. I actually already did it. I could have done axis, title, vertical. Axis, title, primary, vertical. And then I'm going to do, in this case for our data, it's transmission percent. Okay. So that gives me my axes, and my overall title is concentration. Well, I guess I should go transmission. Then I'm going to say sample 1 24 centimeters squared rectangular prism. Okay, so there's my graph of my number 1 sample. Now you might be saying that you have actually 4 samples, and how would you graph that? So if you wanted to graph 4 samples, it's basically the same as graphing 1. But this ends the video on how to graph data using a scatter plot, and I will add a quick short video on graphing multiple data sets in one graph in the next video. Okay, great, thanks.